following episode may contain discussions of sensitive and potentially distressing topics, including but not limited to mental health issues, suicide, death, domestic violence, child abuse, sexual assault, physical violence, and other traumatic experiences. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. This content is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all listeners. The views, opinions, and statements expressed by guests are of their own and not necessarily Burning Bridges podcast. By continuing to listen or view this episode, you acknowledge and accept that the hosts, producers, and associated parties are not liable for any distress, harm, or losses, emotional, psychological, or otherwise, that may result from the content discussed. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you or someone you know is in crisis and needs help now, call 000 within Australia or Lifeline on 131114 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Hey everyone, I'm Justin Cox, otherwise known as JC, and you're listening to the one and only Burning Bridges podcast.
Justin Cox, thank you for joining us on Burning Bridges podcast. We're happy to have you here.
No problem at all, and thank you guys so much for inviting me on. I love absolutely what you guys are doing, the moral and the power that is pushing and driving it, and just to be invited here is an actual honor, and I just hope I can bring some value to it, and to your listeners, of course.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We've probably met a year and a half ago, and then I got to learn about your story and what you've been through in your life so far. And it's pretty out of it what you've been through, and that's why, I really thought it'd be great to have you on. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
So let's start in the beginning, where you're born and what your childhood was like, and let's just go through your timeline through your life.
Yeah, sure. So the timeline starts at day dot, I guess, when I was born in Samoa, but I'm of Thai and British blood, with a Thai mother and a British father. Somehow, through the way of the universe, they end up in Samoa, to where I was eventually born. I was left there with a local lady who then took me in as her own, so she would become my first adopted parent. She took me in pretty much straight away, only a matter of weeks after I was born, with her and her then husband. My biological parents then had split and left, with my biological mother leaving to the USA, to where she ended up getting remarried and having more children, and my biological father then bouncing around the world as he was a private investigator and a aviation crash investigator. So with the local lady I was with, my first adopted parent in Samoa, I was with her for about a year before she fell pregnant. And with her falling pregnant, she then realized that she wasn't going to be able to give me what I needed, to which my second adopted parents would come in, and he would be a married man in Tonga and with a large family of our political stature, and would then later on become the Deputy Prime Minister of Tonga. So I was with that, and I was with their family for about 4 years or so, then to which my third set would come in, which is a Kiwi guy and a Thai wife, both residing from New Zealand in Auckland. And his job was to buy and sell hotels, and his wife just worked around the hotels. They would adopt me from Tonga and then bring me over to New Zealand. And that would be the start of where the slow story starts to unravel, and pieces of the puzzle would fall apart or come together, be reshaped and everything else.
Do you know why you were adopted out from the Tongan guy?
In my early 20s, when I decided to go back through my history and find out the whys about a lot of things, I had touched base with his family, and I never really found a true answer. But what I did find was that my half-brother and half-sister was still part of his family. So my biological mother had actually had kids in Tonga and left them there, and then she had continued on, and then obviously I would be the next one. So the reason why it was only just me that got adopted out was they were a matching set, the same parents, full siblings, and it was easy just to let the one go. To why I was chosen, I'm not entirely sure. To how I was found, I'm not entirely sure either, to be honest.
Okay, so you've You've been adopted out to another family now who was, the father was a Kiwi fella, did you say?
Yes.
And the mother was?
She's from Thailand.
From Thai, okay. So now you're in New Zealand, are you?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so do you know what year that was and whereabouts in New Zealand were you from there?
That was around 1995. And I'm pretty sure it was the end of 1995. And we ended up residing, or my first place that I'd seen New Zealand would be Hobsonville, so kind of the west side of Auckland. Nice area at the time and quite a decent sized hotel. We lived in all the hotels that we stayed at. As he bought and sold them, we'd move around. So I never really knew what that residential life looked like.
Okay, so you're in West Auckland now, you're 5 years old and it's 1995. What was your upbringing like from there?
My upbringing in West Auckland was quite a unique one. Because of where we were located, there was a specific demographic of people who lived in that area. And so to be of somewhat of colour, and I say the caramel complexion, we definitely got seen as slightly different or exotic or oriental in some type of way. But mainly because of the people that my third adopted parents were associating with in their class, you could say, we definitely met some people who held themselves in a much higher regard than others. So it wasn't, and then outside of that, to make friends and everything else became extremely hard. To consistently try and feel I had to fit in or try and be more malleable to fit in was interesting, because I think I came from the other two adopted parents prior to them. I must have learnt my own way as a child, and this time now I had to really try and ground that self and then try and refine the process of fitting in, basically. But then also at the same time, that's where I would meet my first hurdle, and my first realization would be I'm going to have to be beaten into shape. And that's when it started for me.
So you just said about you just faced your first hurdle and challenge in life as a young kid, being beaten. Can you tell us why? Was there a reason you were beaten?
I remember a time where I began to revisit that inner child and what he must have felt. And one of those times that kind of sticks out the most was when I received my first, I guess you could say, uncalled for beating. I understand that back in the yester generation that had a kid played up or anything else, getting a hiding or getting a smack or anything was fairly normal. But this would be my first time that I would receive a beating just through someone else's frustration, or that I would be their outlet to try and digest or break down later on why would be one of my most major hurdles. And that why was that for ages, because it kind of began to redefine slightly for me what it meant to be punished when those hands that are supposed to love you came and hurt you the most, and for no real called for reason, just their pent up energy. That was something that really began to shape me. That's when I realized I now had to try my best to fit this precasted mold of where they've expected me to fill in their life by taking me on.
How long did that go on for? The whole time you were with them?
Yeah, so they would be my adopted parents from 1995 all the way through to I was 18. It was in 1999 through a certain event that we can discuss, where they would split and then I would end up staying with the Kiwi guy. And the beatings would go all the way up until I was 16, to a day that I remember very clearly, actually, that he raised his fist at me for the last time. I said, don't you dare fucking hit me. If you do, I'll kill you in your sleep. And the only reason why I said that is because in 1999, his wife at the time had cut his throat while he was sleeping. Hadn't killed him, but he definitely needed medical attention afterwards, under the suspicion that he was sleeping with one of the receptionists. So for me, it was, well, she didn't do it right. But if you hurt me again, I'm going to make sure I do it right. And from that day, he never laid a hand on me again. He was definitely more more refined as mental abuse after that towards me though, for the next 2 years. But then as soon as I could leave, I could. And back in NZ, they had SIFs, so like Child, Youth and Family Services. When I used to try and run away or anything else, they'd bring me back. He goes, well, you, and then one of them, I remember said, you should stay here. Honestly, you should see some of the other houses that, or families that the other kids have to go into. Just stick it out, kid. Just stick it out. So I did. I stuck it out just for the last couple of years. And then I ran free.
That must have been hard to handle somebody saying how good you've got it when in your mind you don't have it good at all.
Absolutely. It was hard. And I don't necessarily blame them, but in the time you would be angry. You'd be like, you don't understand. You don't know. You just see the hotel. You just see this and you just see that. I've told you what I'm experiencing, but it's like they think that you inflate everything. Sure, there's some over-exaggeration, and that's something that definitely played into a later part of my life as a defense mechanism, was my over-exaggeration, because it was almost like a scream for help without actually knowing it. And the root was I was still being beaten or mentally abused or anything else. But it was hard to be dismissed in such a way. And I think that dismissal really began to resonate more, and carried on along for a very long time.
I think too, as you're saying, you felt dismissed. I think more so probably there was lack of resources available for them to give to you.
Yeah.
And then they just had to dismiss it. And you look at different scenarios from what you're living in compared to other children, and like you said, they're just seeing this nice hotel that you're living in is where other kids are going into community housing and then dealing with an abuse there. It's like you're dealing with, it doesn't matter where you're having to deal with abuse, whether it's in a mansion or community housing.
Yeah.
It's abuse.
100%. I had a friend say something very similar. Even later on in life, when you're dealing with abuse, you can be well off or you could be at the bottom of the tier.
And you're talking about your beatings, and later in your 20s you were doing things to think of why you were getting these beatings. Did you get that answer?
That process was an interesting one, if I'm honest. I don't know if you guys remember a TV show called My Name is Earl, because I was seeing a child psychologist at the time, and we're doing all sorts of exercises and whatever else, but I very much felt like an experiment. And I remember a couple of the experiments may end up laughing at me. So I knew I needed to do something on my own. So I wrote a list down of every single bad thing that happened to me. And I went through them. And I wrote down who. And in brackets right next to it, I wrote down who. And I went back through. I thought I was chasing closure. But I didn't know I'd find a lot more. I found new self-compassion. Understanding was the biggest one. You want to go in to come out with a finite answer, but sometimes you just don't have that. They just go, oh, that's just the way I was raised. You're giving me that, now what do I do with it? And so when it came to my physical abuse from my Kiwi guy, he'd say, oh, that's just how we were. That's what my dad did to me. You're a little shit, or whatever else. So I need to put you in line. The motto that would shape my life would be shape up or ship out. That resonated for years. But then I started looking back into his heritage. I went past him and I started looking back into what that looked like. And I spoke to his mum and everything else. And then kind of learned a bit more about the how he became the way he is. And I had to settle with that. And then I came to peace with that through my own ways. And then same with one of my other sexual abusers. I went and talked to him and found out that he was sexually abused. That was no excuse, but it was for me to find my own peace. And one of the other sexual abusers, that one was even more difficult. When she was drunk, she'd never remember. She dismissed it to the days. I said, that's happened. She said, no way. Even I recited 2 of the times right to her, and she was just on the verge of slapping me. But that's because I know that she knew it was true. Same with partnerships. That's a whole nother type of trauma. That's a trauma where I learned that it was a little bit harder to accept because there's a heavier why, because you've chosen to put this person in this certain part of your life. So then you can beat yourself up for a lot more. When I ventured down spirituality, found out the why wasn't important.
You went and spoke to a psychologist, was it, when you were around 20?
My first psychologist was at age 14, if I remember correctly.
How did you get into seeing somebody like that at that age? Was who reached out to you? Who helped you?
There was a counsellor at school who just had a knack of picking up that something was slightly off with me. He pulled me into his office one day. He sat there and he just tried to connect. Words didn't land with that younger self of mine. But for some reason with this guy I did. Because it was delivered with such a way that I had not seen before. Words would normally always carry something hidden. But this was delivered in such a way where I go, I'm not sure I've never seen this before. What is this? And it was through compassion. And then once he saw that there were fractures in my soul, he helped me to realize that. Still try to reassure me that this is normalize what I was feeling, but that I was unique for experiencing what I was experiencing. And then he goes, can I introduce you to someone? And then every Tuesday and Thursday for the next 6 months at school that I'd get pulled out of class and go sit with this psychologist. It came to a point in time where I remember sitting just going, what is this guy doing for me? Like, I think he was more interested in the data that he could take back rather than what was being left behind for me to carry on my walk home in my mind.
Did you have anybody else that you looked up to during school, or somebody that was there to help you in your dark moment?
No one was really there for me in those early days. How I learned to endure was the ability for my mind to leave the room before my body could. And my mind had to create its own sanctuary. And it wasn't peace, but it's what I had to create to get me here today, for sure. It was learning to disassociate, and that would become one of our greatest tools to keep us, and when I say us, I mean the connection between my body and my mind, moving forward. If we didn't, that disassociation, don't know how it would have changed us for like now, because we just never looked at the other path. But it's definitely one of the best things that got us through when we realized that there was no one for us. There was no one coming to save us.
Wow. Mind can be a powerful thing, to just escape when you're in a traumatic experience. Your mind just seems to I think it does it to save you. That's what it does, Not some brain expert. I listen to a lot of podcasts. But no, I think your brain just can do that.
Very mature for your age.
Thank you.
To be able to do that.
With these hotels, what was it like? And you're moving around, from hotels to hotels. You were doing them up, then selling them off, or what?
The Kiwi guy who was buying and selling the hotels that would become my caregiver, he was just buying them up and holding them to the value increase and sold them, or changed the business around, made them more profitable, and would go from Auckland to Whakatane, back to Auckland to Hamilton, and so on. To answer the question about what it was like in it, everyone probably thinks it's like the old Nickelodeon show, like Glamorous Life, like Zack and Cody or something, where you just live in a hotel and it's just all good and well. Don't get me wrong, there were some good parts about it. Working in the kitchen and helping the chefs meant I got pretty fancy lunches to take to school that I always trade off just for the feel of a sandwich or something that was made by someone else's loving mum, I guess. But the other side that came to it was where I really began to feel like I was robbed and a bit like a slave, was having to clean the units, balance pool chemicals when I was at primary school age, scooping chlorine with my hands because I don't know any better. Mow not just like a normal standard sized lawn, it's like half a rugby field or probably a bit more sometimes. Good cardio. Cleaning the rooms after people, A lot of time when people go to hotels, they don't care. They'll just trash the place. Kid who's just finished primary, intermediate, or early days of college, going into your room that you've left behind, and now he's cleaning up your mess. And then he complains about it, he gets a hiding. I remember one day I came home from school. I was year 10 in high school, and I just had one of the roughest days. Just been bullied. I was taught that if people had done you wrong or would bully you fight back. But I fought back. And I wasn't supposed to do so, but I was being told so I was super confused. So I already been told from the school that Dad wasn't happy and everything else. And he rang me on the phone, on the way home, and because he got me a cell phone, so he could always check up on me. And yeah, I knew I was in for the beatdown. I was super confused that whole walk home. As soon as I get home, I had to go clean, if I remember, about 6 or 7 units. Went and cleaned them. I was crying. One of the chefs was walking past the room, stopping to say hi, and then he saw me folding the bed, crying, bruises on my face. And then he went and had a yarn to Dad. And then Dad came back and said, "Oh, why'd I tell him? Why'd I open up to him? I need to hold that type of stuff inside." I said, "I don't want to clean these units. I just want to go to my room." Told me my lack of worth and my purpose and everything else, and then beat me there up in the room. Told me I need to shape up or ship out, and just continue.
Did your stepmom step in or?
No. I kind of always waited for that saviour. I always thought that mums were supposed to be protective and warming and caring and everything else. No, the only thing that really got a warm grasp from her was alcohol, was cask of wine or a cheap bottle, and that would be the way that she turns off. She just let him run with it. He had his heavy hand, and then she just disassociated to the point where if I needed assistance or anything, there was nothing. And then later on, it would then become her time and her chance to be the next abuser.
Your mum was abusing you too?
Yep.
Physically?
Sexually. It was 1999 on a road in Hobsonville, West Auckland. I would, after their divorce, she went down to Te Puke to work in the kiwifruit farms, to which she's still there to this day from the last time I checked. But she would come back to Auckland to visit her daughter from her previous relationship. And when she would be staying with her, my guardian would send me to go spend time with her. He always said it was fair that I had to spend some time with her because she helped raise me as well. But then I kind of just found out he just needed a break from me so he could have his new lady over. So when I'd go spend time with my previous caregiver, when she'd be back in Auckland, a lot of times she would just always be drinking. Cemented in my mind in 1999. I'd be in her room because I normally just slept in the same bed as her, which didn't seem uncommon for kids and parents. I'd hear the shower turn off. I'd be in the room playing PlayStation because I was lucky enough to have one. I worked for it. That was something that was drawn to me early that I was thankful for, my work ethic. I'd hear the shower turn off. I'd hear the drips of the water just getting slightly heavier and heavier. I'd hear the shower door open, anything else. And why I recite these is because after this day, every single time I heard those noises, I preempted what was coming. Then I'd hear the shower door open, and then hear the bedroom door open, and then she'd come in. She'd been drinking, and PlayStation got turned off, and the sexual abuse started for the next 7 years. So I'd go from being sexually abused with her to physically abused with him, and those would be and mentally abused from him, and those would be my two main ones until the next perpetrator then came in.
So how old were you when you first were sexually abused by your caregiver?
First sexual abuse from a caregiver started in 1999, which would have made me 7 years old.
And then you said it went for 7 years, so you're 14. And you just said you went on to another abuse from other people. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, correct. So the next one came with a fairly interesting story. 1999 would roll around. 1999 was one of my most hardest years. During that moment, not so much, because we were malleable. We could adapt. We kind of knew the regime by this stage. We knew how to be. We knew how to survive. Our disassociation, our refined craft to create tools in our head and our sanctuary for our safety was in its peak time. The next thing in 1999 would be my caregiver was waiting for the opening of another one of his hotels. And between the previous one and waiting on the new one, he got a little flat on a street in central Auckland called Grey Lynn. Just a tiny little cul-de-sac, tucked away in the suburbs. And just like we did as kids back then, when we're not on the PlayStation, obviously, or anything else, we played with the other kids. So the first day, after moving and unpacking and everything else, I said, can I go play on the street? He goes, yeah, go. So I was like, oh, sweet. Ran up, seen a big group of kids, and they welcomed me all in, said hi, everything else. Oh, we're going to go play over here, and it's an abandoned house, on the street. It had been lifted. It was going to get moved, but you crawl underneath and crawl up in the house, and we're in the little house, And so then, as we're playing around for the day, I meet another kid. I won't say his name, but we introduced each other. We yarned for a bit, and then he's like, "Oh, where do you stay?" I stay in that house there. As we're in this other elevated house, looking down upon the rest of the cul-de-sac. So, what about you? I was like, "Oh, I stay over there." Our houses were bang on opposite each other. We could look outside the lounge window and see each other. He's like, "Oh, that's cool." He asked if I wanted to come back to his house. So, okay, yeah, I would just go ask my dad first. Went back home, asked him. I was like, "Oh, old mate's just over in that house there. It's okay if I go over there." He's like, "Yeah, go." So I went over. He opens the door. His mum's around in the background somewhere. He's like, "Oh yeah, come in. I'll just introduce you to mum first." Okay, cool. Stand there, and then his mum comes from around the corner. I said, "Oh, hello, my name's Justin." And she goes, "Oh, nice to meet you." And she goes, "Oh, where are you from?" And I said, "Oh, I don't really know, because at this stage I didn't know. I don't know what my composition or my mix was. I just knew that I had come from the islands, because I was always reminded of that. That's pretty interesting, whatever else. So she'd press with some questions a bit more, and she goes, "Oh, some things were adding up in her head." And me and that friend are still friends to this day. We caught up a few years ago, and I asked him if I could share the story. I got his permission. We were both standing there in the front door, inside the kitchen, as his mum's putting things together in her head. And then she just goes, "Is your dad's name so-and-so?" I'm like, in my head, I'm like, "That's my biological father's name." She goes, "Oh. Is your mum's name?" No. Wow, that's my biological mother's name. Oh. Boom, she's gone. And me and my friend is standing there. We haven't moved, because we're like, are we going to get hiding? What's going on? And then she comes back, and she just got this photo album, boom, 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 flicking through the pages fast as. And then she opens up. "This is you. I looked after you when you were a baby. She was my first adopted guardian. By the miracle of the universe, we had just moved back from Whakatane after the divorce. I had been sent to America to meet my biological mother for the first time since she left me. Come back to New Zealand, because I decided I definitely didn't want to stay with her, and that's another tangent within itself. Now we're in this little cul-de-sac in the middle of Auckland, in a random street with random kids I've just met. And here's the lady that was my first adopted guardian. She filled the rest of my blanks in for me. She's the most kindest, sweetest lady.
Wow. That's a full circle.
She she showed me like proper care, even into like adulthood. She never once betrayed me. I'll make my sucker back up. But there was a dark side to that. Gifts come with curse. And it would only be about an hour or so of being in the living room and hanging out with her and her son and hearing everything else and hearing the reasonings and everything else before we heard the car come up the driveway. And it would be his dad. His dad would come in and his mum started picking up her stuff, her bag and whatever else. Oh, you not stay here? No. They separated a long time ago. She just comes during the day sometimes when she wasn't working at the hospital, look after my friend. His dad would walk in. Dad locked eyes with me. I locked eyes with him. And then he didn't say anything else. But the first thing that did come out of his mouth was, "You're so-and-so's son, aren't you?" He read me straight away. It turned out that he used to be a pilot with my biological father. And then he goes across the road and says hi to my caregiver. A few times of hanging out go by, and I ask if I can stay over the night because my friend asked me, he goes, "Oh, you want to stay tonight?" So I go back, ask caregiver, yeah, cool. Caregiver's going over to his mates for a night. So I stay at their house. You know, bedtime rolls around. And then that's when he would reveal himself as my second sexual abuser. And for a while, these three people would just dominate my life in various aspects, all unknown to each other. One with a heavy hand of abuse and mental abuse. One with mental and sexual. And one just straight physical and sexual abuse. And for years, I'd just be passed around between the three of them. I'd go from my father or caregiver to the other caregiver because that he needed a break, believed that she needed to see me. And then my friend's father became good friends with my caregiver. So he'd go, "Oh, you should go spend some time with him. He's a great guy. He's raised up his son really well. You should go be like his son." Because my friend that I met in the cul-de-sac was a young sports star in many sports. But later on I found out why. So I'd just be passed around the three and there was no escape.
So you've got your father caregiver.
Yep.
Who was mentally and physically abusing you.
Yeah.
Then you've got the mother,
Mm-hmm.
the ex-partner of him.
Yep.
She was sexually abusing you.
Yep.
And then you've got your friend's father,
Mm-hmm.
who was your first adopted parent,
Yes, correct.
who ended up becoming a sexual abuser.
Correct.
So you've got three people in your life. At this stage, you're what? How old are you?
This is 1999 when
7.
yeah.
So
And
you're 7 years old. You've got these three abusers.
yeah.
How did you deal with that?
The two sexual abusers started in the same year. The physical and mental abuse started much before that. So I think that definitely gave me a head start in how our mind deals with it. How we got through as a vessel and soul, it just took surrender. We just had to surrender ourselves. There was no fighting it. We tried. That was useless. So my soul surrendered my body. And that's where the disconnect happened internally. Our body felt betrayed, but then so did a lot of our mind. So we felt betrayed by ourselves. Our soul split. And we just had to find coping mechanisms that let one and the other know that we were still the same person. But hey, we need you to take one for the team this time. We didn't know for how long for. We didn't know why. Was it always going to be this way? We weren't sure. All we know is that we need to get through. don't get me wrong, there would, even at a young age, times of this can't be it. Surely everything that we see from everyone else and everything, and from movies and so on and so forth, those are lies, right? This is life. But we didn't know any better. So it just took surrender. And we just wondered where that level of surrender was. Do we surrender ourselves back to the spiritual side of things? Like trying to jump in front of a car, walk into school. This one's going a little bit faster. Do I step in front now? What happens? Will they be mad at me? I'll be dead. Doesn't matter. When I'm cleaning the unit, this stuff smells pretty strong. Is it going to burn when I drink it? Don't know. Taste it from the cap. I don't like the taste of this one. Maybe there's another cleaning one that I like the taste of. I can drink that one instead. I put a knife in a PowerPoint, tried that, that didn't work. Woke me up, that didn't work. So it was surrender. That's the only way that we got through during that time to when later on, when I was a teenager, we would begin to find other ways and means of not just trying to leave the current reality, but ways and means of dealing and coping and exploring.
You had no one to talk to about any of this?
No, I couldn't even talk to my friend. I thought I was saving him. It's something that we spoke about a couple of years ago when we caught up. When he told me that was happening to him too, because I had never seen it happen to him. I was only ever abused in front of him. I thought I was saving. I said, I thought I was saving you, bro. He's like, no, man. It was happening to me when you weren't around. You were just the break. So, shit.
Did he know about his dad doing it to you?
Oh, yeah. It happened in front of him. I was abused in front of him. Even later on when we were in our early high school days and it was still happening. I'm talking like year 9. Even then, like, we knew that this is routine now. And we both never ever spoke about it. Whether we're walking in the park, playing cricket together, whatever. That was just something we never ever spoke about. First time we ever brought it up was only a few years ago. Mm-hmm. But then we had no one. I tried talking to some people who I thought were good friends, and the reactions I got back, they just taught us more that we need to be quiet. When I was in my first relationship and I was practicing what it meant to be vulnerable and letting them in on the past, I never have given anyone the full detailed story. I just give them enough to understand and see what they do with it before I make the decision to give them more. But even though I gave them just a little bit, and the way they ran with it, they almost threw it back in my face, and it just kind of solidified that we need to hold this in.
I find it interesting how you're referring to yourself as our and we. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
People reference to themselves instead of you saying the words I felt like this. You reference as our and we. How did you come up with like referring it like that in that way?
The our and we and the way that I refer back to myself, it very much came from a time of exploring and opening up to spirituality for the first time, where spirituality and consciousness work helped me to reconnect with my soul, while therapy, psychologists and psychiatrists and that side of it helped me understand my mind and thoughts. So they gave me two different specialized toolboxes to approach a similar job with. The war between my mind and my heart, the collateral was logic, and that was broken. And I realized that there were two different things going on here. And when I say our and we, I am just acknowledging that this is the vessel and that there's a pilot inside of it to a degree. There's a soul in there. There's various versions of ourselves in here. There's the inner child that we carry every day. There's the person we are now in the present. And then there's the future person. standing within us as well. We're carrying so many different versions of ourselves. I got taught through therapy that we can have 3 to 5 different versions of ourselves. Our family version, our friend version, and our own true version of ourselves. And so it's just recognizing, acknowledging that there are different versions of ourselves within this one vessel. We're not just one operating machine. That was an ability I definitely had to hone. I didn't realize I had it. I think it came from a monk that I sat down with. I was never really big into the whole meditation thing. But once I gave it a shot, I realized that the disassociation and getting away from our body was a version of meditation on its own. Once I kind of sat down with them and kind of got through like the rough beginning starts of like the whys and all the questions and just kind of like shut up and got into it. I remember something that resonated was look for the gift in trauma. And that's the one thing I always try to teach anybody who's experienced any type of trauma, any trauma. But every gift comes with a curse. Some will be born in the shining light of a diamond. Some will be born with the hands of a farmer and a hard worker of that sort. Others will be born in a coal mine. I was born in a coal mine. I was given coal. But just like anything else, that's where diamonds are made. Every time I sat down to meditate, whether it was on my own or with the monks or anybody who was working in that space, I had my coal in hand mentally, and I'm just rubbing it down, break pieces off. Some days you'd make great progress. It's a big chunk of the coal off. Some days you just had to show up, but you knew you weren't really there. You were just spaced out, mind's in a different place. Then when you come off with just a bit of dust, you pull out you find your gift, you find out what that thing is that trauma left you. It came and it basically shat on you, but it left something behind. And you get there and you hold it up and you go, okay, so this is what it's done for me. Let me take this and now let's just hold it up in the sun and let more of that light just blast around. That's what I try to do now. But like anything, residual bits left behind, right? You've got all the dust on your hands. It's dark, it's everywhere. And those are the bits that we can choose to either carry within our trauma when we go forward, or you can start to keep that diamond in hand, keep it in your pocket, but to start to scrub off that hard work you've had to do now. And that's the stuff. And as you put work in, then to heal and put processes in place and become more practice in your meditation or whatever means that you've found, you start to wash off that coal. And then as the coal dust gets lighter and lighter and the staining gets lighter and your fingerprints and the creases in your hand all start to come through, that's your identity coming through until your hands are clean and you can pull your diamond out and hold it nice and clean. Because you found your true self. You rubbed off all the trauma. You don't have to accept it, but you just accept that it happened. And now you've taken what you can of it, clean hands, and you've found who you are. And that's a place where I see myself now. And that's how I became practice at it. And that's what I try to show anybody else that's in that trauma space. If I had to tell them anything else, was just find what it left you behind. Doesn't have to be diamond, it can be gold, it can be anything.
I love the way you just explained all that in detail, analogy of you're born in a coal mine and how you've just polished it. And you said that there's a gift in every trauma. So what's your gift in your trauma?
And just like the gifts, they always come with curses. Mine became, or the gift that I discovered was this uncanny knack for pattern recognition. Sometimes it gets hyper-focused, which can be part of the curse. So I could foresee circumstances, instances, or situations with people using their energy and their patterns of who they are, where they've been, and so on and so forth. It's not like trying to see the future or anything like that, but it's just a recognition, and it gets mixed with a sprinkle of a sixth sense. But also at the same time, the curse is that you apply that in the worst times. In a relationship, for instance, you stop allowing people to be people because you're too busy trying to read what's going on in the future, or you're too busy read. It's like going into a conversation, pre-living it with all of your answers, and not allowing room for the conversation to unflow naturally because I'm trying to answer you or say something before you say it. Not knowing if you really actually want to say that thing or not.
Within your maybe work that you've done,
Mm-hmm.
have you chosen to forgive those that have hurt you?
That's a multi-tiered answer, I'd say, because very much in the yester generation, especially when you guys have been brought up and then more so myself as well, it was just a harden up. It was just a be stoic, don't say anything else. Forgive and forget. Oh, just like look at the person's face who's suffered anything or felt anything that really resonates inside them, no matter how big or small, and be the person who has done that to them. Expect them to be healed, but not be a part of the healing, and just go, forgive and forget, man. Look at their faces. How can you truly expect that from someone? So when it came to work, I've been through various professions in my time. I never forgave. I never forgot. I definitely became way too good at holding grudges, to which later on I learned how to let go of them for me. But when it came to work, there was a strange circumstance, really. Mainly just because of the time of life on how I found my next profession after I was in the engineering industry to where I'd be exposed to the fire service. It was never on my radar ever. But I gave it a go because through some of my early therapist work, I was tasked to do 5 things in 1 week to help someone else. And I found there's a part of me that just really felt at peace with that. And I never asked for anything back, never expected anything back. So I said, this might be the go. It kind of encompasses a lot of things. And then by being in the fire service, it gave me so much drive, purpose. It reminded me I could be a good person. The uniform and the flashing lights and the sirens all make you a little kid and go, oh, yeah, awesome. And the camaraderie and the brotherhood and everything else that comes with it. Definitely, don't get me wrong. And the helping people was an awesome feeling. But I'd be a bit more selfish in saying I did it because every single time I left the station, it reminded me I could still be good inside. I'm still capable of being a good person. And one of the biggest parts of healing was to be of service to other people, to help other people. I think that's probably a big part of the healing. I never forgave, I never forgot, but I tried to help other people who have like the worst day of their lives, I guess, in some sense. And then when it came to like forgiveness, trying to learn to forgive for me was a concept way out of this world. I don't even know what that meant. Forgive for me? What am I forgiving for? What have I done? What am I forgiving? On a time when I felt arguably my most lost. Once again, I found myself sitting in front of a monk, and he goes, I can feel you need to ask me something. I said, yeah. I need to know, do I belong here? Do I belong in this life? Am I only supposed to be here temporarily? And like, what was my purpose? Because I'll be honest, in that moment, I just needed him to say yes. And that night, I'd already written the letters. I already knew where I was going to go get whatever I needed to get. And in that night, I would have left my vessel behind permanently. I just needed him to say yes. Or anyone to say yes on that day. He just happened to be the one I asked. So I said, do I belong here? He never said yes or no, but he gave me something much better. He goes, to know if you belong, think of a flower or a plant. It was the seed fell in one spot and it sprouted. And then it moved. And then it grew a little bit more until someone came along, saw it, picked it up and put it somewhere else. Now it's moved again. That flower can choose to take the nutrients from the soil around it and grow brighter towards the sun, or can choose to reject the nutrients and die off. But the plant that you are in life is how you decide if you belong. And then I took that and I goes, yeah, I'm going to choose to belong.
Where did you see these monks?
There's no one place. All around us, honestly. I ran into one at the supermarket. I just had a quick yarn with them. I was like, I don't want to bother you. And he goes, come to the temple and this and that. They're everywhere. I've just been to the Thai temple out South Brisbane. There's one just down the road from me here. As much as the monks and temples were a thing, also was mind consciousness training. It's just finding people in that similar space and just going, oh, I don't know, I'll go about this, but well, we'll give it a go. And then you find people in that space and then you yarn a bit more and then we all exchange a little bit, of ourselves.
I'd love to go see a monk. Like, I've never seen a monk. Like, well, I've seen some monks, but never gone to a monk.
Yeah.
I think it's probably, I don't know, better than probably seeing a psychologist, maybe.
Psychologists, the difference between psychologists and psychiatrists was an interesting one. I was 21 years old. I had an apprenticeship going with a great company with a fantastic future at the time and doing work that I thought was far out of my scope. Super proud of the skills I had gained from that point in time. But this day I was just prepping something on my bench and then I just felt this overcoming cloak of sadness. And I just couldn't explain it. I just started crying. Don't know why. And I'd be like this for the next week and a half. And then one of the other guys at work picked up that I was going to the bathroom and then he walked past, stopped and heard me crying. And then he knocked on the door and then I opened. I said, I don't know why, man. Just so sad. I didn't really know what sadness was, but I know I was definitely sad. Tears falling down the face. Boss pulls me into the office and, he's like, I think you're depressed. And I was like, oh, whatever, just use the old, harden up. That's not a real thing. Even though we recognize that we felt these certain ways through different experiences and times through life, we never really sat to find the definition of what it meant to be depressed because we were in this phase of just surviving and creating tools and coping and everything else. So now this is the time where the chapter would be called depression. And it was the floodgates opening up from everything rolling in that we buried, tried to forget, thought we healed from. So the boss said, one of my best mates I go sailing with, he's actually a psychologist. And I was like, oh, snap. He goes, the company will pay for it. You go see him, you do well for us, we'll help you, and stuff like that. So I sat on it for a couple of days. And all I knew about psychologists was society makes out, you see one, you're crazy. So I was so scared. I was like, man, fuck, if I open my mind up to this guy, I'm going to get thrown in the back of a wagon with a straitjacket. So I was like, oh. But then it took a weekend of crying again to go, oh, what if we've really got to lose? And I go see him. He was the head psychologist at the time for ProCare or Healthcare New Zealand or something along those lines. Super nice guy. And then so we started off, went through it, and then one of the first things he kind of talked about was the memories and things that were coming up. And then it's like he gave me this key to, I call it the spare room. Everyone I talk to that has something similar names it something else. But there's a room in my mind where I can open the door and close the door and visit anytime I need, or I can put things in there and just keep it there. And so in my mind, I went into this place where as he was pressing, I just opened the door and let it all come out. And it was like a cascade of old Polaroid pictures, bam, 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 just falling out. And as each one came past, they would just turn into a little 3 or 5 second video, and it'd be flying past. And I was like, oh man, this is too much. And then he helped me work through that. He goes, you see, those that you see, those are things you haven't dealt with. It's like, you just kind of all right, cool, chuck that in the spare room. Let's lock it away in there. And so that's where that went. He helped me to really understand my mind. I remember one day, as I was thinking on something, I was just staring at his bookshelf, because you know how most of them have just a massive bookshelf with all these books. I was looking, and I just looking around, looking back, looking around, looking back. I always felt myself just always going back to this one book. I don't know why. It was black, red font, not one of the most colourful ones out there. But every time my eyes went back, just went to there. And I was zoning out. And I thought, hey, what's that book? And it was Managing Your Mind. He goes, oh, interesting that you only just put that up there last week. It's interesting that you see that. So he pulled it down, and then we brought it out. And then that's, as he started going through like parts of it, he started talking about how the mind works, like in a way that resonated more with myself, and showed me like, oh yeah, this happens because of this and this and that. So, oh, that's pretty neat. So like seeing psychologists then made me go from that feeling of I'm living here in a straitjacket to I feel empowered. Now I get to make my mind sit and obey. And now we're going to work through this. We're going to create, we're going to craft, and then we're going to help. Mm-hmm. We're going to help that little boy, and then we're going to help externally as well. And so that's where like that whole stigma of like psychologists and psychiatrists changed. Psychiatrists I found a little bit different. I was then recommended to see a psychiatrist to get some medications. I just felt, that guy, I just felt like a guinea pig. Oh, you feel this way? Oh, okay, we'll take more of this, less of that. No, stop that one and try this one. And that one sent me down a way worse path. That path that went from the medications, I stopped seeing a psychologist. I started seeing things. I was hearing things. And I kept that on the low for so long because I knew that was proper. Like, you couldn't tell anyone of that because they would judge the hell out of you. But it got to the point where, same thing again, there's a bus stop right outside my house, and same thing. One day I'd taken too much of one of the medications because I thought, this is supposed to stop this. If I take more, surely. Then I was mixing out alcohol, and then, yeah, I heard the bus come down the road, and I stood right there. I don't need to go anywhere. I just stood at the bus stop, just slightly up from it. It's like, this has got enough speed that if I jump just at the right time, all the noises, all the things will stop. Having such bad nightmares, and then it actually led down into drug abuse to where I got addicted to meth for a bit as well. And then the people I was buying it off got me fired from my job when I said I wanted to stop buying it. So I lost my job at that time and just lost everything. Lost my mind, and then I lost my good job with the prize future, I guess you could say. But I kept the skills from it, which is good.
How did you get through your addiction? What made you stop?
That wasn't my choice. It absolutely was not my choice. It was forced hand. I couldn't find anywhere to score from anymore. I had a job, so I couldn't buy it anyway. All I had was a skill set, and I knew I needed to make rent. And so I started offering my engineering fabrication services from home, to which I was looking on Facebook and trying to find, what do people need? And what can I make with the area that I have and the equipment with minimal equipment? And I found a little niche part of the market and just started making products in that part. And then I was making them for cheaper and better. And then because I was so focused on just trying to make sure the rent was okay and hiding it from everybody around me, I couldn't afford drugs. So yeah, couldn't afford the psychologist or the psychiatrist. Funding stopped because I lost the job, so I lost the funding to psychiatrist. And I couldn't really afford alcohol, couldn't afford to vape or smoke. So nothing. I went cold turkey for 4 months. And every time I felt that addiction, I just went outside and started working in the garage. Honestly. Be 11 o'clock at night, I'm feeling some withdrawal symptoms. Get my ass in the garage. Just in a little single car garage, just making car products. And then it churned away for ages. And then I realized this is it. I was like, I'm doing better than I was before. I thought and then I looked back and I revisited the sessions that I had and thought I was a bit more healed and whatnot. And then I was like, okay, cool, I'm good. And then that's when I created my list. I was like, I think there's still more to come from this. And then, yeah, went through my list around that point and then just kept working and then started my own business.
Overcoming addiction by not being able to afford it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would get the money and then go and buy it. But the fact that you've made that decision in your mind to go, no, I'm not going back.
Yeah, I think I looked at the people who were around me and were abusing drugs at that time as well. And it just made me go, well, I have a shot at not becoming like them. You know, I could be different from them and still use, But then I was just like, nah, man, I this is not who I am. And my partner at the time wasn't overly supportive of what it looked like to heal, because that she was going through her own things. It was definitely all on me at that stage to just go, nah, man, we've got to do this for us. We've survived other things. We'll survive this.
Being sexually abused, can I ask, how do you move on to then accepting love from somebody in your later years?
Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, relationship trauma comes with a whole new definition and a whole different perspective, because should it break down, the hindsight can be very heavy because you've chosen to put this person in such a controlling or in such a dominant position in your life as your partner, as your right-hand man, more or less. And so when anything fails around there, he goes, man, I screened this person for this position, more or less, Not trying to make it sound like a job interview, because if you treat it as such, it will always end like a job interview. But, that's what you do when you date. You screen people and everything else, and you find compatibilities and whatnot. But one of the hard things was once I'd kind of set myself into the world, I looked at the gifts and gaps of what I'd been left from my upbringing. And I remember seeing a group of friends, but specifically two, who were in a relationship when I was younger, in my later high school years, and they were older. They were 23, and I was about 16 at the time, because I enjoyed older friends at that time. But they were high school sweethearts, and just everything that resonated off them just felt right and looked just heavenly, I guess. Nice, And so I was like, oh, maybe what I need is someone to show me what love is outside of this this conditioning environment that I had previously had, where the definition was completely wrong. Absolutely not realizing that it was going to hurt so much more. Where trust, how would you describe it? Yeah, not realizing that would hurt so much more because of the weight of who they're supposed to be. I guess that's probably partially in projection. When they almost validate what you had learned when you're younger and come to learn as love, man, it sends you further ahead, sends you like further downwards. Trust, betrayal, dishonesty, and everything else. The warmth that's supposed to be for you is the warmth that someone else is feeling. That brought on a whole nother level of healing. I had to start healing all over again. We had to go back to the crafting stage and trying to re-engineer tools and create tools and find tools within ourselves. This is day zero all over again. And so early on, through our mind's process of pattern recognition, we picked up on something. We didn't feel right. And then falling back onto our energy reading, just knew something was wrong very early on. And sure enough, we came to be right. We'd been betrayed. Someone who's supposed to hold your heart is now melting it, and it's just dripping through their fingers, and they're just shaking the water off. And you're the reason. For us, it proved that our safety mechanisms worked. At the same time, now what do we do? So who do we seek? Who do we talk to? You kind of turn to society and everything else, and they go, oh no, forgive and forget. Or look at movies or other people, you yarn with them, and they're like, oh, these are early things you need to work around, and so on and so forth. And then we kind of become like disillusioned to stay in that position, because that's what we're taught. Stay there for a while, and we found ourselves becoming the worst version of ourselves for the next few years. You go, oh, well, which part of me is searching for love? And it's the little boy inside, or the child inside. But which part of that boy is searching for love, and what does he think of it? So when you practice revisiting your younger self, which I've done a few times, I wouldn't say anything to him when I revisited him. I just stand there. I'd kneel down and I just hold him because words didn't land for that kid, but safety would have, and just let him know that he was safe. And I just whisper in his ear and hoping that they land, just saying, the world did you wrong. It's not the other way around. It was unfair, but you're so capable. And then realizing that I just had to have that younger self and my heart wrapped by my own hands was a unique pain within itself to try and get over, but one that carried us through until we found a relationship where we thrive more now.
So with relationships, talking about, where are you at today? You have a partner?
Yes. Got a beautiful, beautiful partner. So in a great place with a beautiful, beautiful person inside and out. And then also to throw in the whole blended family thing as well. That makes it all interesting and just teaches you how to open your heart a lot more. She comes from a larger family where everyone's quite very accepting of everything else. I come from a very guarded place where my circle's a lot smaller. Is consistent learning in my current relationship, but learning for the better. And I think she's also a massive part to why I'm probably in the point that I am in terms of being my most mentally sharpest and strongest in that sense. Our perspectives are so different, but it's about that work that we both put in to meet somewhere in the middle so we can understand it. We don't always have to agree on it, and you definitely don't have to agree, but it's the ability to be able to respectfully disagree and stay in those positions still.
Yeah, you've been raised in a certain way to have like negative experiences, and then now you're in a loving environment, and it's for you it seems to be it's all new experiences that you're not used to. You've been ingrained in a certain way.
100%. And this is where the curse of the gift comes into play, because for one of the first times ever, I'm in an environment where I don't have to ask, what's the backhand to this? The curse of that pattern recognition and hyper-focusedness of it means that I'm consistently looking at where's the bad part coming in. And because we are different people, not just in my relationship, but in others as well, if a pattern begins through actions or conversations or words exchanged or anything, my pattern recognition starts going here. I go, okay, there's 6 different possibilities here. And then they take the next step or move. And then you go, cool, we're down to 3 or 2. Then they take the next one and you're like, here, this is where it's going to end up. And then you act, prep, and live accordingly. I tried meditating through that so I could shut that process down or slow it down in this aspect of my life. But I found that when I'd entered into that spiritual space, I was finding a lot of hurt that crafted that process of pattern recognition in my mind. It's like, oh, this person's done these things and that's like, this is how it goes. Like, this, you've seen this. And so I sat with the monk about it and said, why is it now when I try to meditate, I can't find my peace in it anymore? He goes, your mind is just abusing some of the best things that the mind is capable of. Just great imagination and memory recall. And it's just spinning those back on you. And then you're throwing in just a little bit of trauma on the top of it. And he just told me basically I'm suffering twice.
Did you ever have like your default as in to defend yourself? When your words, you explain it as you screening, or it could be another term is noticing red flags in people. And then that's your defense, mechanism from previous experiences that makes you wiser. So when you go into another relationship, you can notice that you're more aware of those red flags. Did you notice that you had a default that you sort of automatically went to defend yourself from being hurt?
Definitely noticed that we had a default. But our default was our biggest curse in terms of when it came to friendships and relationships. It meant that our circle stayed small constantly. Not necessarily that was a bad thing, but it meant it stayed very, very small. You do one thing wrong to us, nah, that's it. You've started the pattern, you're out. So when it came to partners, it was hard because now you're playing with a deeper emotion than you would with just a friendship, partnership. Our default with that was to cut and run, because that was what we came to know was best. And with the focus that society has now on red flags, you don't allow a person to be a person. That's one thing I definitely noticed, and I definitely got too attached to of the idea when I was reading around or being exposed to social media and society, when you spoke with them about relationships and flags and how to screen a bit more safely.
Is going back to earlier when you were talking about when you met up with the monk.
Mm-hmm.
You wrote a letter. You said whether you should carry on.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been stuck in my mind since you said that.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a letter of suicide?
Absolutely. This one was going to be my third attempt. There were two previous. I've only attempted twice, both by the same means, but for some reason, it just didn't work, man. I was trying with opioid-based painkillers. For the first time I did it, slowly passed out, and I kind of went off in what felt like peace at the time. That friend who actually helped me out of that relationship was just passing through my area, and he just wanted to stop by, and he found me on the floor, called the ambulance, got my stomach pumped and all that type of stuff. I remember going to the hospital and asking them to keep it super quiet. I said, no, I just messed up. I was drinking and I had some painkillers. No. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, trust me. I'm in the fire service. I wouldn't do shit like that. I just fucked up a little bit. Okay, we'll give you benefit of the doubt. Sweet as. And the second time came round, a little bit more calculated with it. I had conversations with friends where I had closure with anything that we might have argued about, or close things off in various ways with people, finances, everything. A bit more calculated. I know they always say that, it just happens. People who do it just do it. No one's always calculated with it. But those times it felt right, And then tried again when I was actually in the ambulance service, and one of my good friends and colleagues came out because he got the sniff of a word that something was wrong. Sure enough, when they came out, the timing was just impeccable again. And then I ended up pulling through. Next time I do it would be when we would change. Our metamorphosis was our biggest after this. We became a whole different person. This time, we were fully contempt. Like no other. We were ready. We'd already opened up spiritually and everything else. We'd done our work in our mind, everything. Yeah, but we were convinced that it was right. It felt right. It felt like the realm was calling for our presence. I had a son who was not too old at that time, maybe about a year or less. I wrote his letter, beginning with, "Just know that I love you, son." I wrote his letter. I got my finances in order with the will. I wrote a very, very short letter to his mum and to the person I'd been previously dating, who was still lingering in my mind and part of the pain. And then just one more letter to a friend, just thanking them for being there and everything else. And we were set. We were ready to go. We knew where we were gonna pass over and everything else. And it was a friend who one of the letters was for, had brought up the idea of just before you do, that people burn in hell for this, so just go get your last final piece for it. Oh, that night I was ready. That was done. He didn't know. No one knew. But we were like, this is our third time. We're making this happen this time. So we had another method lined up. And he's like, hey man, I know you've been feeling down and out. and this and that. I just wanted to like reiterate. I hope I know you've mentioned that your mind is slipping to a bad place. I just don't want you to do anything that's going to like leave the rest of us in some pain. Just remember that we get left in pain. And if, I'm just saying, don't fucking do it. But if you do, people won't burn in hell for this other stuff. So just maybe make peace with people who might be able to help you on the other side as guidance. I took that and I was like, this guy's right, actually. Maybe I can just find a bit of guidance. And then just when I sat down with the monk there, as good as the energy felt and anything else, I felt it almost reiterated, I'm okay to go. This is it. We're okay this time. We're good. And I just asked, do I belong? That's when he gave me the flower analogy. I was like, fuck, I've got more growing to do, don't I? And then from that point, we shed off who we were around then, and then we just became this whole other being. And now the focus has shifted so much. And I held onto those letters for a while before destroying them. And destroying them later on just kind of felt like a big sense of weight being lifted, I still remember in my head the last one, which was a final letter to anybody who I'd met, just to be released socially. Just saying, don't be sad, to when there's a memory of when I'm gone, live in that memory. Hopefully it was of joy and everything else, and wrote it down, and it was signed at the bottom with tears, basically. And not so much tears of sadness, but just tears of happiness and acceptance, which sounds weird. We were ready, but I got to give it up to that monk. He really turned it around for me.
Wow.
What advice would you give to somebody who was in the same situation or feeling the same way as you?
To anyone walking through the echoes of their own pain, don't just look for healing, but to look for that gift. Look for your diamond in your coal, or look at what you're born into. Like I was saying, you could be born with the tools of a farmer in your hand, but look at what life you can cultivate or grow from it. Your task isn't to deny what had happened, nor to glorify it, but to understand how it's been shared with you. And when you stop looking at your trauma as a life sentence and rather as a teacher, then that's when you start to reclaim your power, is what I'd say.
When you spoke to that monk, you were planning on ending it?
Yeah.
What was actually said that monk really turned it around for you? I know you said about that he's like your belonging here and the reference with the flower and the sun.
Mm-hmm.
What part really, resonated with you? That switched it for you?
I definitely know that one of the most powerful things wasn't from what was said, it was the way it came off and the way it felt and where it was coming from. It wasn't just here's my advice to you. It came from a place where that frequency was unknown to my heart or my soul. I was still tuning into it. One of the biggest things was that he just helped me to realize that I still had to give more to others, to put back into the soil so other flowers could grow. Otherwise, how many other flowers will die off? That's what it was for me. He helped me to realize that, yeah, this flower can die off, but why not help a few more other flowers in the nearby field? I go, yeah, true. I know there's others out there that have been in a place where I've been, and it's just my turn to try and help them through, I guess.
Wow, I've just had a light bulb moment from what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
There's a word that you said, frequency.
So that's another thing is when I was going through a lot of exploring spirituality, There was a good conversation one day about frequency and feelings. And because our body runs off small electrical circuits in our mind and our heart, you know, the little signal goes from one node to the other, makes your heart beat, your brain, same thing. You can, in all the science and technology we have now, you can fully recreate an organ out of natural tissues and circuitries and everything else, right? So even if you were able to map the brain fully, recreate it and like for likeness, measure the signals through the milliamps of voltages and whatever else other means from the conscious person and fire it through the new replicated brain. Does the replicated brain, was it firing out the same signals because you're telling it to, or where to get it from and how? So that's what like really sunk in for, well, what is consciousness then? Because if you got this conscious person and that brain's firing in that way, but you've got the exact same brain now, you're making it fire. Where's that spawn from? And then with the electricity in our bodies, naturally, can be measured on such a little small scale. On a bigger scale, like a EMP, blacks out cities, more or less. These small ones, our bodies have these little receptors in our soul that can pick up on that. And it was about changing my frequency inside to try and reach out to others where their scanner's on and they're trying to find which one to tune into. I'm saying, hey, I'm putting my one out to try and help you find your own one.
And that's one thing that I've just been to learning too with frequencies, and whatever frequency you are on in that given time are the people you're with are the same frequency as you. For me, when you said it wasn't the words, it was the frequency.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it's not what people can say to you or give advice. It's the energy they're bringing and the frequency that they're on with you. And that's where I've just had an awakening moment with that.
How are you today? How are you going? And what's happening in Justin's world?
In our world today, we no longer look forward. We wait for life to meet us where we're at. We're in a place of peace and comfort and expansion, growing our mind in such a way, and consistent grounding. Ditching the initial seed or idea of processes and recreating new ones of experiences and starting that rebuilding process again. We can do it with presence because presence saved us. It was someone being present with us that saved us. So we just look to be present for other people now.
I know you touched on it earlier, but what would you say to your younger self if they were listening to this?
I would just say, keep crafting in your mind. I wouldn't say anything else. Just continue your craft in your mind.
Well, thank you, JC. It's been an honour to have you here today, and I could talk more, man.
Yeah, same. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just go on.
Yeah. Like when you ask about what more parts of the story, I'm like, man, there's actually so many little parts.
Yeah.
Thank you again for your time, for being with us and sharing your story and your truth and your experiences that you've gone through in your life. And it's amazing to hear your story and the person you are now. And thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much for having me here, and just for having this space for people to come in and have this conversation. We talk about frequencies and energies, and the frequency and energy of this place is second to none. I've been on other podcasts before, and it just doesn't feel the same. So this one's great, and just happy to share with the audience, and hopefully, just one listener out there can feel just a little bit different or start crafting for their own, because that's the next step.
Great. Look forward to keeping in touch with you and see what's going on, and we'll no doubt be in touch.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Appreciate you.
Laters.